Hello, guys. David Vose here again. Another beautiful day. Really windy today, but it's a nice day. I mean, the wind was pretty bad. It blew off my stovepipe up on the roof and about to felt like it shook the house. The wind got so bad for a minute. You can't walk outside with your hat on your head. You know it's gonna fly off. But I I drove to town because I had to go to the post office, and I'm now kind of along the road on the way back. I drove down this little old road and ended back at the same point that I went hiking and came across this old road. And here I am on the old road. And I had no idea that I could get to this. Well, this old road comes out right at my my old road that goes to my house. So I'm just down the road from here, and it's a pleasant little spot, and I parked here. And though there is a lot of clouds going overhead and bringing wind, and there was I don't know, for a few minutes it was opened, and the sun was beating down real hard and hitting my face, and it was delightful, and I was basking in that warmth. And I was noticing just how wonderful it made me feel. That heat, that warmth. I remember the dogs laying out in the sun. And I was thinking, man, I'm getting some vitamin C here, and I'm getting some vitamin D, I guess is what I should say, and probably other vitamins as well. But it made me feel good. It made me feel happy. And where I'm sitting, I can see cliffs. I'm up kind of on a knoll, and I can overlook a little bit of a valley, and I can see over the other side of the valley, and I see all the cliffs and the red bluffs and some beautiful big ponderosas nearby, and beautiful yellow grass, and it's all swaying in the wind, and it is beautiful. And if you're not feeling any emotional pain, like I'm inside my truck right now and I'm warm. It's not real cold outside. So I'm not feeling any unpleasantness. And the wind has actually died down now for a moment. And I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling good and regenerated. And I'm not thinking about any bad things, any anxiety promoting things. I have thought about quite a few things over the process of the day. I had found out yesterday that my uncle and his sister, my aunt, my dad's brother and sister, had passed away. And nobody had told me. Of course, they don't talk to me anymore, so they don't feel obligated to let me know about anything. But I had just had this strange feeling, and I wanted to see if my dad was okay. But of course, I don't have his phone number, and nobody knows what it is. And I didn't know if he was still alive or what. He's 80. I think he's 84 or 85. And so I thought, well, I'm going to look up on the app here on the phone, obituaries in California with his name, and just see, if anything's happened or they didn't let me know or something. And I couldn't find anything for my dad, but as I was looking, I found my uncle, his brother, who passed away last year. And in the paragraphs, the eulogies or whatever underneath, it said that his sister had already passed away as well. My Aunt Bobby. And I love those guys. Now, Uncle Frank, the one who passed away, his wife, Aunt Darlene, she had passed away about, I think, maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm not really sure exactly when, but I did hear about that. And the only reason I heard about that is because, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I just decided to pick up the phone and call my uncle, because his number's in the phone book. And I asked him if Aunt Darlene was there, and he said, "She's dead." It was funny the way my uncle just said that. He was like, "Oh, she's dead." So Aunt Darlene and Aunt Bobby and Uncle Frank are all passed away. And evidently my dad's still alive. I haven't found anything that says otherwise. And his sister, the youngest, Aunt Ruthie, I haven't heard from anything about her. But it made me not real sad, because they're very old people, and I haven't seen them for years, but I dearly loved Aunt Bobby. She was good to me. There's only been a few people in my life that have been fairly good to me. The one person I couldn't live without, that I don't think I could even be on this earth if it were not for her, it would be my daughter. She's my reason for being on this earth. And she's just so amazing. And after that, be my mother. And again, I wouldn't be here without her. Of course, not only because she gave birth to me, but for other reasons besides. And next to my mother is my Aunt Darlene. She's my Uncle Frank's wife, and she was the best person I ever knew. They were all Jehovah's Witnesses, but the elders would always tell people what they're supposed to do, who they could talk to, and what they could say. And Aunt Darlene never did listen to the elders. She was always faithful and did everything scripturally that she's supposed to do. But when they would ever tell her that, because she had a son who wasn't Jehovah's Witness and didn't go to the meetings, the Kingdom Hall. He had kids, so they were her grandkids. And I think there were times when Jehovah's Witnesses just wanted her to give up on those kids and throw them away, and her son, and not talk to him because he wasn't doing right or whatever. And she always just told him, "No, these are my kids, these are my grandkids, and I'm not going to do that." And they never messed with her. And I don't know why, because a lot of times they'll just fellowship you if you don't follow their instructions and shun people. But she never did, and she never would. And I think even her members of her family, my cousins and stuff, didn't approve of her caring and being kind to me and my daughter. And there was a time in my life when Aunt Darlene was there for me when no one else on this earth would be. So it saddened me when she passed away. And Aunt Bobby was an amazing person and was a caring and gentle person. Never was a witness, though. Never was a Jehovah's Witness. Anyway, I got to thinking a lot of melancholy thoughts and so forth yesterday after that, finding out he had passed away, and my Aunt Bobby. And I had also been very sick the day before. I think I ate some food that wasn't good, and I ended up having to spend the night, up all night and not feeling good at all. It was really, really excruciating and painful. So I've been kind of going through these different little things in the last few days. And then today, it was last night before I went to bed, a TikTok came up. And it was this young man that, just by looking at him, I would probably be able to say that this young man probably could not be an extremely wise sage or guru or some wise man, that spent 40 years in a cave like Elijah, and you could go and he had spoken to the angels and the Lord himself, and you could get answers. And I find this to be true with 99.99999999999%. And perhaps on into Insidium. But I don't meet a lot of wise people. Not really wise. I mean, when you find somebody in this world that's wise, all you're saying is they know how to get a good deal at Safeway with a few coupons and make sure that they take their vehicle to an appropriate car repair station. And they know how to handle money or something. You know, that's what it means to be wise today. But as far as do they know, does this person, does that person, does anyone know what the fiddly diddly we're doing here? Why we're suffering like this? Why so many other people are suffering? I've also been experiencing, I had been watching, there's a guy that, some kind of a lawyer that he films or shows, people send him clips of cops arresting people. And I don't know why I keep watching it, because it disturbs me. It upsets me to see all these poor people being beaten up, falsely accused and imprisoned. And just some of these young people get their arms broken or go into the hospital. Some of them die. Some of them shot, killed by police for no reason. And there's all these crazy videos that this guy's putting out. All legitimate, real, on the scene. And I was thinking about that too, and I was thinking, well, I almost wonder if all these videos aren't propaganda as well. Because on one hand, you say, well, it's good he gets these out there. He's exposing the police and their harassment. But nothing changes. Day in and day out, these people are being harassed and bullied and shot and murdered, and their civil rights, being trampled on, their rights as a human being, and I think back on the history with Rome, and no telling what was going on in Rome or Samaria or Persia or anywhere in the world, China. The soldiers and the dungeons and the tactics and the inquisitions and all the marauding bands and the inquisitors and the rapists and the pillagers and all that's been going on, what women had to bear, and children put to slavery and pedophilia and all that has gone on in the world. And it sickens me. And I think about these videos and how, well, we're exposing it, but nothing is done. Not a soul seems to ever learn or desire to stand up. And I always see the main cause is that everyone is completely deceived by society and the materiality and the luxuriousness, the pleasures that society offers. You could have a town, I don't know, I've heard of Bangkok and how all these immoral things go on there, and there's little brothels and poor women that are enslaved in those places and are paid meal, room, and board just to night and day be abused by other men that come through, and our military that goes through and uses their services as well. And I think of the fact that there's these young Navy men going through, or Army or whatever, and they stay over in Bangkok and they all go get their girls and, laugh and joke and beat somebody up and harass the natives and maybe rape some kooks and harass some natives and blow up some buildings and laugh about it. And I'm not saying everybody's that way, but there's a large number of people in the world that have done this. It's never changed. And many good Christian boys, that went over into these wars and came back. Many times, I think these young men did it because of camaraderie. Everyone else was doing it. They would have razzed you. They would have made fun of you. You wouldn't have had a very good time in the army if you didn't just do what everyone else was doing. And there was always some leader of the some captain or officer that almost encouraged this kind of behavior and run around doing this, and you couldn't say anything against it. Whatever reason, but you look in society today and you see all the police doing all this, and you wonder, what kind of people are they and how could they be like this? Where were they raised? Who were they raised by? What kind of morals do they live by? And they just walk up to people's homes and bust in illegally. And they know they can get away with it because the judges don't normally hold them accountable. And whenever they do, if they had money to take it to court and win the case, all that happens is they pay out a few $100,000 to the victim, and they pat him on the back and say, now go on your way. The guy gets fired and goes to get a job somewhere else. There is no disciplinary action other than, hey, we got to be more careful when we do that next time, that we don't get caught, or, we only harass people that probably are too poor to sue us, or we'll just do it anyway, intimidate people, and they can keep suing us, but we're never going to change. The system's never going to change. If we go to court, we're not going to court and asking for this policy to be changed. We're going to court and getting money and saying, oh, it was just an accident. But they're being trained to do it. And we're being duped in the public because we see videos saying, oh, look at the harassment and the brutality, and it's being exposed. Those darn cops. Look at them. We got them on camera. We sued them. We won. Yeah. But this keeps happening because they want us to see the videos of them beating and tackling young teenagers on the way home from school and breaking their arm and taking them to jail and putting felony charges on a kid because they didn't say yes sir, right, properly. And they want us to see it. I think it's a form of letting us know that there's nothing we can do. I think the police want these videos exposing them, because all it's doing is showing you, the American citizen, that you have no power. Best you could do if a police comes and just rips you out of your car and beats the crap out of you and leaves you for dead, the best that could happen is that you might be able to find some lawyer to get a few $100 damages or a few thousand. But hopefully, this will make everybody think it's all right and we don't have to stop this. But they keep doing it. So it's a way to intimidate us by showing us the video. Look what's going to happen to you. And there's not really much you can do about it, but spend all your life savings trying to sue these people. And then you probably will not win anyway. And even if you were to win, you're not going to change the system. We don't mind spending a few $100,000 paying off people in order to keep this in the public view, that we can do anything we want. And when you get pulled over, you're frightened out of your mind. You're not thinking, oh man, I hope they beat me up and I'll sue them. No, nobody wants to gets beat up, or, the possibility of being murdered or permanently crippled. Nobody's caring about, I might make $100,000. So it intimidates people and we obey. So they teach the police to give orders that are unlawful and to do unlawful things, and they don't stop, and they're not going to stop. And Trump is going to be the one that's going to make this even more predominant soon. But that's not at all what I wanted to talk about today. But these are the things that I've been noticing and seeing, and my mind's been on some thoughts and some sufferings and pain, and a little confusion about, a little melancholy and a bit of retrospection and prayer and thought. meditation. And then this guy pops up in the TikTok last night who wasn't, like I said, some guru, some young man really, but he made a statement as though he knew what he was talking about. And he said, there is no thinker, because when you have thoughts, the thoughts will come and then they will go. They will come and then they will go, meaning they are not something that's a part of you. Because thoughts can come and they go. But whenever they come from within you. And then they go. So this proves, he says, that they are not us. So we need to know this so that we can separate ourselves from these thoughts and this pain. And then he began to say, and you are not the thinker, because if you were the thinker, then you would be responsible for these thoughts and they would be with you all the time. But because they come and they go, they are not yours. So you are not the thinker or something. And I've heard this mumbo jumbo quite a bit in my lifetime. And the first thing I'll say is that I'm aware that most people don't have any real education in much of anything. Let's say I found somebody that was a mechanic. Odds are he wouldn't know a lot about mechanicking, but he might claim to be a mechanic. And he might know something about being a mechanic. Enough to say, look, I'm a mechanic. And yeah, I know what spark plugs are. And I know what an engine block is. And I know that a car needs gas and oil and water and lubrication and tires and proper air inflation. And I know that the engine is a combustible engine and it has rings and pistons. And he may know that. Most of us kind of do. But does that person know really anything? Other than like a trained monkey, he knows how to go and get a wrench. He's memorized what sizes, and he's got a few tools so he can get some jobs done, and he's got a jack, and he knows a few things. He's done a few things, and that makes him a master mechanic. Well, not really. Because a lot of times you'll go to a mechanic and ask them about something and they'll give you the wrong answer. They don't really know. There's not a lot of people that know a car inside and out like my stepfather did. But even my stepfather was just a man, and I don't know that he knew much about anything other than maybe motors and engines and how to work on an old Ford. But would I call him a wise man? No, really. Nothing above average. And I would say the same would go for just about everybody I've ever met. If I walked up to a doctor and I said, well, now there's a wise man. Why? Well, because he got his PhD or something. He's got a doctor in front of his title, and he's gone to school for 6 years, and he knows anatomy, and he knows pharmaceutical drugs and what they are prescribed for. But does he know anything about health? No. He probably knows very little about health. Now imagine if he spent 6 years trying to understand that, and most everything that he's doing is lies. He's been completely duped. Now, he should be aware that he's being duped in his practice over the years when he sees his patients not getting well. Nobody's happy. People are dying. Complaints. But he ignores all of that. Now, we could dig down deep into the reason why a human being, and there must be thousands of these people all over the world that think they're doctors, that think they're intelligent, and yet they're murdering and actually killing people and causing suffering to many people. They're involved in a sorcery that is some kind of evil witchcraft. I don't know what it is that's going on. But the fact that none of them seem to be able to wake up, and only a few will even acknowledge a slight bit of the malpractice. But odds are they're never going to really come clean. So then we have a scientist over here. Tyson, DeGrasse Tyson, whatever his name is. Probably spent 6 to 8 years in school or something and learned about a few things. I don't know how much a person can learn by sitting in a classroom for 6 to 8 years, memorizing models and theorems and learning how to perform calculus probably and geometry. But maybe learning the laws of Newton. But to what extent this person is a wise person, I can tell you probably not to any extent, because as we've said on this channel many times, I think some of you are beginning to understand that just about most of this science that they are taught, in every age it comes and goes, and they say, oh, we were wrong. That's what they used to believe. We don't believe that anymore. So other than math, I suspect that geometry and calculus is a usable tool. They have some understanding of this particular thing that they might be able to use to find out how much pressure is in a tire, or if they needed to design a building and they needed to know the strength of that pillar, they could use this great wisdom to build some monstrosity. But what is this monstrosity that they're building? This building. It's going to house a bank, which is probably the capital of the demise of this world. All the burglars and the thieves and the evil, wicked people in the world are all got their offices in this building. And it's billions of dollars to fund it. For what? So they can all sit in their little seats in their swivel chairs and smoke their pipes and go out on a Saturday night and, pick up girls and bring them home to their penthouses? What are they doing? What is this big monstrosity called the bank that they're building? Or this insurance company that they're swindling us out of our money over here? Oh, yeah, well, Dave, but they're building cars with that money so we can drive. Well, that's something, but it's dividing up the world into roads. It's polluting the earth. It's taking the children away from their families far away to work in a mine so they can get the money so they can finance this car so that they can, spend 30 minutes on the weekend driving around enjoying it? But all of their life, they're in great misery because this society is not how we're supposed to be living. And it's all based on all these lies. And these lawyers that go to school for all this time to become a lawyer. Why? So they can find reasons, legal reasons. What is a legal reason? Some made up code? Who made up the code that now condemns us all? If they can get a hold of you and take you to before a judge, and maybe if you pay them enough money, they can find a loophole and get you out of it? This is all fraud. This is all evil. So we could go on and on through the vocations of all the souls on this earth. And I would say that starting from the top, the highest would be maybe a president or a politician, the most corrupt, the most callous, the most murderous, with more blood on his hands, who probably is getting the least accountability. No accountability. Doesn't have to tell us what he's doing, or if he does go out and have sex with some little girl or some pedophile ring. They all do it underground. They're all like the Three Musketeers, one for all for one, and nobody touches them. And this tier of evil and insanity is going down all the way down to the little poor guy living on the street who's got this, what he thinks is this 2-story matchbox luxury home with his white walls and his microwave, his orthopedic bed, his barbecue pit in his backyard. It's all manicured, and he's got his hedges and flower bed and one little poodle that's got to be walked every day at 6 and another time at 8. And, you know, he thinks he's a king because he's finally made it to some cul-de-sac in Sacramento. And his neighbors hate him. And I just saw a video with that. I'm actually describing a guy that was beat up. The cops illegally entered into his house. 3 cops took him down, beat him up, drug him off, and had him arrested. All because somebody claimed that he parked his car for a minute in the wrong place. But when the cops got there, the car was actually in the garage and he was in his house. And unbeknownst to most people, it is illegal for a police officer to arrest you in your own home without a warrant. They can't arrest you for a traffic ticket while you're in your home. They can't bust into your home. But anyway, these people will spend their lives as slaves, night and day as a slave, so that they can get to a place where they can own one of these beautiful manicured homes in a cul-de-sac in some slum, is what it really is. I mean, yeah, it's manicured, it's beautiful, all the lawns are green. But when you go in there, all the neighbors are going to require you to keep your lawn like that. If you've got some car parked wrong out front, they're going to call the police. There's constantly being disputes. You got a flag on your porch. They don't like flags, or a bird feeder, or that's not legal in the HOA and the whatever. So it's constant fighting and bickering, neighbors hating each other, calling the police coming and just beating people up. And it's an insane world, and nobody's happy. So then we take this to the field of religion and spirituality. We go somewhere and we see this Indian yogi sitting with his legs crossed. We assume he's been through some kind of training, some schooling. We don't know how much of the Vedas he's even read. You might think, well, must have read quite a bit, Dave. He's got that big old long beard, and he says all these things like Rama Bami Swami Rami, and says all the known little mind teasers like, you are not the person that you think you are, and you are not the thinker, and we need to meditate and go within and reach nirvana and go and all these, crazy things. They must be just sitting in a corner, some wise man braiding their beard saying and it just seems like they must be so wise and patient to give up their life in the real world and just sit in a corner and do that. But in fact, I doubt whether any of them really do. Maybe on certain holy days, they'll go take their little rug and put it down and do the and rock back and forth in front of a big rock that's supposed to be holy. That right there tells you they don't know anything, because that's not holiness. And the fact is that, look, as you guys know, I believe in all the scriptures, including all the Vedas, and whether it be Zoroastrian and Hinduism or Shintoism or whatever, all religions go back to the prophets, and all the scriptures are inspired. But as for whether or not any of these gurus have ever actually even read very much of their scriptures, or even if they had read their scriptures, whether they understood these writings, is very doubtful. Just imagine over here in America or in Europe or somewhere where they're a Christian nation. Walk up to a man who says he's a Christian, maybe a pastor or a teacher of some kind, a bishop, and many of them have never read the Bible from beginning to end. And it wouldn't matter if they did, because you can't just read the Bible from beginning to end. It's spiritual parables and deep truths that need to be meditated on. And the fact is that no one ever did that. There was a school, a priesthood that was set up where you went and sat in front of some academy, and they weren't teaching you spiritual truths to live by and how to become wise. What they were teaching is how to be disciplined, not because you want to get to heaven, but so that you could become a master at the arts of karate or jiu-jitsu or something. And you had to learn how to endure severe treks, marchings with soldiers, how to strike somebody with one strike and they would be taken out, how to use a sword, hand-to-hand combat. And maybe they said, but when we teach you this, we want you to learn that there's severity and then there is kindness, when to show it and when not to. And that might have depended not on some spiritual principles, but on the basis of what would be good for the kingdom. I mean, if you really look into Confucianism, it's certainly a biased and false system of spirituality based on what we see over there in China, where they're all bowing and bowing. This is ridiculous. It's superstition. You don't bow to any man. And because they believe that they are to bow to a master, we see that they were indoctrinated into this sacrilegious thing called worship and the honoring of men, which Jesus denied and didn't believe in. And so did Buddha himself. Now, the prophets themselves were great, but I don't know what happened to some of these religions. They got very corrupt with political takeovers and infiltrations to change their discipline from attaining enlightenment, which one cannot do. That's just a misnomer. Enlightenment comes through experience, through life itself. There is no, Jesus didn't start a school of how to become enlightened. He simply taught us to love one another and to share the world. I think there's no real secrets to the world. I think if we would stop beating our head against the wall and being taught war and politics and connivery, deception, I don't think there is a discipline other than the one our Heavenly Father gave us when we were born. The natural ways are the only ways. So the gurus, they learn in modern religions, like Islam has religions like Christians have religions. Look at Christianity. We're familiar with them, so we know. Does a Baptist have any special knowledge of the Lord Jesus? Does any of them really know how to interpret the scriptures? Have they memorized a few verses? Maybe. Do they know what they mean? No. Do they know the meaning of what Jesus meant to love one another? To lay down their life for their brother? Will they do it out of love, or would they actually do it out of fear of government, out of the selfishness of the fear of their life? Would they hurt others to save their own life, but not lay down their life for others? Would they go against their brethren who was about to hurt somebody like a gang of wolves? And would they say no? Would they have integrity? Very few would. And almost all of these Protestant religions are about as far away from the teachings of Christ as the Satanist or the witch doctor down the street that they berate and rail against day in and day out. But I'm not saying anything good about the Satanists, of course. they're delusional. They're almost at the verge of being wicked, if you want to put it that way. Although everyone's soul is a child of the living Lord, but this mask that we're all wearing, this masquerade that we're playing, this beast nature that we've morphed into, which is like taking an innocent puppy and making it cruel, beating it and starving it and making it a vicious attack dog. That's what humans are. That's what our system of life is. It's a deranged, fallen state of affairs. So you can't find the truth by listening to a pastor who has a Bible and he carries around with him everywhere. He doesn't know anything about what it says. He's turned it into some way to be a prosperous, right? Think rich and grow rich. This kind of lack of spiritual understanding is so sick. It's so twisted. It's far more the opposite of what the reality of truth is. I mean, as far away from the beautiful, sublime truths of Jesus Christ as the heavens are from the deepest hell, to the point that it's literal wickedness and disgusting, filthy rubbish. So, if Christianity is like that, should we not suppose that these gurus sitting around in their yoga positions with their beautiful white robes, their little turbans, and their carefully groomed big old white beards, with their harems in the background, just got done having their eyebrows brushed and their nails trimmed and manicured and their robe ironed and fluffed and draped around them just so for the camera, as they're getting ready to take a picture, a selfie for their new picture that's going to be on their new book that's going to sell millions, about how to find yourself within yourself. And I tell you that they're blind. 90% of the people that you find on the internet today, like the one that I saw, they're teaching this idea that we're not a thinker, that there is no thinker and we're not the thinker, that that's a delusion. And I will tell you that they don't really know anything about what they're talking about. Number one, that's not what the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Vedas or anything teaches anywhere. I mean, as I've said to you guys before, all the stuff that you've heard about nirvana and going and sitting right and breathing right, none of that's in the scriptures, in the Vedas, none of it. Yoga was invented in 1929 or 39 or something by some guy who was paid $1 million to make a book by Rothschilds over here in America. The New Age movement was commandeered by financial people to keep it down, to teach fluff and auras and fragrances and, flowers and rainbows and all this unicorns and butterflies and never teaching or understanding or producing anyone who could literally get out of this worldly system long enough to even think about what these ancient scriptures mean. So they read these books that have been written for the last few hundred years by these certain gurus that got off in this. Remember, over in the East, they've got several different beliefs, several different traditions. Some who believe there is no thinker, that's an illusion. Others who believe there's a thinker and an observer, as if, this is what we should be thinking about, right? Observers and thinkers. The truth is that, and I've told you guys this from the very beginning, none of them understand it. The universe is all one. You cannot have thoughts without a thinker. You can't have an observer without an object to observe. So they're ridiculous in all of their speculations. You'll see some guy sitting in a chair, or in a yogi position, and there's a little classroom, and they're asking him, "Oh, master, we've we've got to question, why is there suffering? Am I really the thinker? Is all this suffering just an illusion? And if you'll just explain it to me, then I will meditate on it and I will know the truth and I will become separate from my suffering and I will no longer suffer. And it's like, okay, here's the problem. Can we see one of these guys? One, just one, that has ever done what they claim they can do? Has any of these sadgurus or anybody achieved absolute happiness? Can any of them do miracles? Can any of them say with certainty that they are free from the material bondage of this realm, as they claim we are somehow in bondage to this material realm? See, they're misunderstanding the scriptures. We're not supposed to be flying around like little butterflies in nothingness. And we're all trapped here in this stupid world where we got to have wives and children and have responsibilities and build little lean-tos in the forest. And why, that's just awful. There's so much suffering. The birds are killing each other and the animals are killing each other. And this is an evil world and it's a part of the delusion in our mind. And no, they're completely insane. You see, the reality is there is the one universe. There's only the one reality. And that may sound very guru-like, but it's just a way to say that there's only this one world that we live in, and it's a beautiful world. And it's only not beautiful because of the lies of men. And the first lie was that you're a sinner, and we need to rule over you. You're not free. We must control you. This was the lower ego that started this selfishness. Now, what is this lower ego? Why did the Lord allow it to exist? It is simply, when you are a child, you don't know what you will when you grow up. The world is in a state of advancement. It's the adventure or the experience of knowing for ourselves what is good and evil. Now, parables are in the scriptures, in the Bhagavad Gita, in all the scriptures about this. Does anyone understand these parables? Not too many. But the truth is that in a mathematical or in a logical way, I'm going to share with you something here. Yes, we humans are the thinker. This is, I think, the going thing right now. All these gurus think they've figured it all out and they understand it. I don't know what it's doing for them, but, they don't seem, any of them, to be free from this ridiculousness. They're all running around, putting on the mask, getting up every day, punching the clock, imprisoned by this materiality and advocating police and government just like everyone else. Just ridiculous fools. But they say, okay, some gurus have said, because of their misunderstanding, that we're not the thinker, because when you see a thought, it just pops up out of nowhere, and then it goes away, and then you're not thinking those thoughts anymore, right? So it's gone. Now you have another thought. Well, obviously that's not you, those thoughts, because they come and they go. Well, now wait a minute. What if we were to turn that around? Because just to start with, how can a thought exist without a thinker? How can an object exist without an observer? Or an observer without an object to observe? How can a runner exist without running? How can a knower exist without knowledge? So yes, there is a thinker. And if the universe is, as the scriptures teach, all one, and I and the Father are one, then whatever's happening, these thoughts are within me. Have you ever seen thoughts outside of yourself? Like, I have thoughts. I'm aware of my own thoughts, but I'm not aware of your thoughts, unless you tell me. But thoughts arise within myself. Now, they may disappear, but they're still there. But here's the thing. I must be thinking those thoughts, or else they could not exist. Now, that's not where it ends. Just as I can say, as a matter of postulating at this in order to come to an accurate understanding, I could say, well, the thoughts come and they go, but I'm still here. So therefore, I am me and my thoughts are not me. All right, makes some sense until you look at it this way. When the thoughts came up, did you observe them? Were you aware of them? Yes, I was. Else, if I weren't, I couldn't have told you about them. So I observed my thoughts. So then would it be fair to say that you are the observer? Yes, I am the observer. Okay. Did you observe nothing? No, I observed something. It had an effect upon me. So I am the observer. Do observers observe anything that is not objective? Or were you imagining it? Was there an object that you were observing? Yes. Okay, so that object then is not you. You're just the observer, not the object. Okay, that's kind of like I'm the thinker, but not the thoughts, or the thoughts and not the thinker. But now, let me turn this around and ask you this. What if you're not the thinker making thoughts, but you're the observer observing the thoughts? If you're the observer, then what if you, or the one who is aware, what if you are no longer aware because you shift your attention from one observable thing that you are observing and you turn your attention to another object to observe? Now you're focused on some other object and you are not paying attention to the other object, but it's still there. Maybe there is no time and space in your mind. Maybe you can be aware of something and then turn your attention and then be aware of something else. And maybe everything in the universe, an infinite everything, in an infinite universe, is right here, right now. But it only occupies your attention when you choose. So now you're the chooser as well as the observer. You're not just observing everything that's always there, and if it's not there, then it must not exist, but you're observing only what you want to observe because you're also the chooser. What if you're everything? What if you're the thinker, the thoughts, the observer, the object, the images, the imagination, the imaginer, and you're the chooser, and you're the creator, and you're the destroyer? What if you're the happiness and the sadness? What if you, when you're in nature and you look out across the field and you see the little sparrow on the branch of the tree, and you say, I'm not the sparrow, I'm observing the sparrow? Well, just as I think I am and the sparrow is other, and if I am and I'm observing the sparrow, that doesn't mean that I exist and the sparrow doesn't. In fact, the sparrow may be looking back at me and observing me in his own unique way, from his perspective or from her perspective. Maybe we're observing each other, and maybe the bird is me and I am the bird, and we're choosing to be two separate entities observing each other, like male and female becoming one, like a person looking in a mirror observing themselves. Maybe the one universal being isn't any place or at any time, but it's just being all the time. And maybe that divine being is everywhere, in all, through all, and above all, like the Bible says. And maybe it is likened to a great light, like the sun. And each of the rays of the sun are separate, but belong to the sun, and are one in essence with the sun, and share the same divine qualities with the sun, and have communion with the light, and know the light, and know themselves as the light. But each ray of light goes out in a different direction in its own perspective, and enlightens and congeals and bends through prisms of crystals and energies and swirls and vibrations, and other vibrations are emanating from those beams of light. And somewhere they reach a point where they begin to reflect back and break into various colors and a rainbow of colors. And those colors then become visible and are beautiful. Because when you look at yourself, when the sun is in its own being looking out, it shines forth, and then at some point it reflects back so that the sun can see the beauty, so that the light becomes the beauty, and the spirals and the crystalline forms, the flowers and the trees and the spiraling vibrations. All of these vibrations and spirals and crystals and colors are all simply aspects of the light. And one crystal might come in contact with a flower, and though they may not see each other and perceive each other as humans would perceive and see each other, they do communicate chemically, vibrationally. All the flowers eventually go back into the soil and become one again with nature. What if the whole universe is just one and part of the whole, but variables and aspects of the whole that can communicate with each other, so that the great universe, though it is whole and one, split itself in half and became male and female. And through this division and separation, it could have love. It could have reunification. It could have the amazing rapture of coming together again. What if, when I am seeing a beautiful woman and I'm seeing the white gown and the veil that you lift when you go in unto her, when you're about to experience the rapture of her tremendous beauty, what if that's the purpose of life? To become one again with all things. Not that we will snap our fingers one day and become the one or the only. Maybe it's never intended that we will ever be the one, or that we ever were in all of its glory, all at once, at one time, and at one moment. What if in theory we're all one, but we enjoy this eternal dance? And what if this divine spirit that is this universe, in its highest form, is a human? And when we look out over the field and we see a daisy or a crystal or a bird or a butterfly are all equally beautiful in different gradations. Maybe the bird is much higher and advanced farther than a mere crystal in the dirt. Both are beautiful, though. Both are necessary for me as a human to enjoy and understand the creation. You see, Every time I listen to these gurus talk, modern gurus, not the scriptures, I realize that they are so ignorant and fooled that they've not only deceived themselves, but they blinded their ability to see for a long time to come. I don't know if they can be awoken because of their pride. They're sitting there in a chair and everybody's gathered around and they're going to explain the great truth. You are not the thinker. Well, if you're not the thinker, who is? And if there is no thinker, what are you even talking about? Semantics? It's ridiculous. They're so blind that they actually believe that their words, because it's difficult to understand their words, means they're smart. That's not what Jesus taught, friends. Jesus didn't come and say, hey, you guys, you're not real. You're all just an illusion. Yes, sin and evil is an illusion because it's not supposed to exist. Yes, the devil's a liar, a deceiver. That's the delusion, the devil. And what does the devil give us? Lies. He gives us the pain. He gives us the suffering. And he gives us the suffering by telling us that we're not worthy. So all the pain and all the evil you see in the world is based on people who pretend to know something and are trying to ram it down other people's throats and conform the world into some kind of society that they don't understand. Friends, I want you to understand that life is much more simple than all of these high-minded, puffed up in their pride, puny little minds trying to somehow make sense of this wicked world by not simply accepting the fact that we need to let go of our pride, stop trying to find the good life and happiness in any other way than what the Lord has given us. He's given us this world. Do you think butterflies and crystals and rainbows are just figments of our imagination? This is the plan. This is the purpose. Look around you. Be overwhelmed with the joy. That's enough for a lifetime, that amount of joy right there. The privilege of living, standing on a mountain and looking at the view and smelling a flower and watching a bird light down on a limb. That's beautiful. And if you don't like that, then you are delusioned. You're listening to some delusion. Society that says you got to live in a city. You know, if we would get rid of all the anxiousness, all the, you know, how we were talking about our attention being taken from one thing to another. It doesn't mean that the thing doesn't exist anymore. It's just we are no longer aware of it. We're putting our focus and our attention over here. You see, if we can get our attention and our focus back on just living and stop trying to figure out why we're here, but just to let ourselves enjoy being here, we'll be able to find the joy because we're going to be focusing on the joy and on the life and on the love. But if we're going to try to hold on to the cookies with our hand in the cookie jar and trying to get those cookies out of the cookie jar without dropping those cookies, if we want everything and we want to have luxuries and some kind of system that's based on vengeance and vile hatred and control and building a world from our own ignorance. Man is so wise. We're at the precipice of being the shepherd of all of this. We're supposed to go out and feed the sheep and pet them and love them and embrace the love and let the sunshine come down on her face and let a butterfly land on her nose. You know, the animals don't even like us anymore. They're afraid of us because we insist that maybe we should, because we're the king, we should kill them. So what has happened? Why is it, if we're the shepherds, that we become so evil? Because remember, we're not yet advanced. We're not heirs. We're just children and babes. And we're running wild. And we've become corrupt. We're not listening. Jesus said he came to tell us that he loves us and he's going to return and bring his kingdom. He's going to establish his kingdom. Anybody who thinks that we're going to be able to be happy without the kingdom of the Lord Jesus and his love, but somehow we're going to sit in a yoga position and go and find it, is an insane individual. They're past and beyond convincing. There's no way you can help them anymore. They're reprobate. All these gurus and pastors and policemen and lawyers and politicians are reprobates. They lost their minds and they're playing at the seashore, making castles from the sand and watching the waves come in and wreck it. And then complaining and whining to everyone else and saying, this is an evil world. My whole world was just destroyed by a wave of the sea. What an evil world. This must not be the world we're supposed to be in. There's got to be something wrong with it. I'm not the thinker. I'm not the castle builder. All ye gather round, ye little sun worshippers in your little bathing suits, gather round the now destroyed sandcastle and let me teach you wisdom. You see this sandcastle? This proves that all is nothing but vanity, and we must go within ourselves and cease to exist, for all of this is vanity and striving after the wind. And I know everything. And if I don't make any sense to you, that's only because what I'm saying is so profound. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. It's getting later. I'm going to get this loaded and go home, and I'm going to enjoy the sunshine for a little longer while it's out here. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm going to try to forget about all the anxiety and the crime and the evil that these people are striving with. And I'm going to get out of Babylon. Let it fall. You can't really help them. All I can do is say, come you guys, come with me. Let's get out. Let's go into the world where there is no stress, where everything is provided. You know, we've got water running down from the mountains, little streams that we can get a drink from. How soothing and how wonderful. Look at the flowers growing and the little deer. And let's pick these berries. What are these berries and nuts? Oh, this is amazing. They taste wonderful, right? Too bad we didn't have some pizza. No, I don't want any. I want to live a life where I'm not addicted to some chemical, but I'm at peace with nature and happiness, and I'm not worried about death. You know why? Because death comes because humans have gotten a little too big for their britches and just can't let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Let's speak the words of wisdom. Let it be, let it be. Oh, wow. Well, I found these branches and we can make a roof with this and we'll stay dry. Oh, look at these yucca plants and these palm branches. We can take these threads and weave them and make skirts and blankets, shoes for our feet. And we won't have to worry about the stock market. And we won't have to worry about losing our job or dying of some Ebola that they created in a test tube in the laboratory in the Ukraine. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Come on, Mary. Let's go. We'll have some children, and we'll teach them to love their brothers and sisters, and we'll have get-togethers with the neighbors. We'll teach them to listen to their elders. We'll have bonfires, dances. We'll play the drums, and we'll make stringed instruments, and we'll have dances. We'll hike to the tops of the mountains. We'll become friends with all the ravens and the eagles and the rabbits and the deer and the buffalo. Oh, but wait a minute. What about nuclear war? Oh my goodness, what if we lose our job, Mary? Then what will we do? What if we don't have insurance? Oh, we're not in that world. We're free. We're happy. Wow. And to think I used to wonder if I was a thinker. Guess what? I'm just going to be a beer. I think I like being a beer. How about you, Mary? Oh, yes, my eternal companion, the love of my life. I am fulfilled, and all is well in heaven and upon earth. Oh! Wow. What more could we want, Mary? Look it. It's getting dark, and the stars are beginning to shine. And there's the moon and Venus. Well, pull up a rock and tell the animals to gather around. We're just going to do a little singing and... Hey, you little Buster boy. That little Wolfie's got his little wet nose right up there on my elbow. That tickled. Oh, he's so sweet. Look what little Mr. Cottontail brought us. A little flower. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you, Mr. Cottontail. What a wonderful way to live. And then, you know what? Let's live this way for as long as we can, Mary. Well, it's getting night now, and the stars are starting to come out. I see the moon and the sun and Venus. Oh, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. But you know, for now, I'm content right here with Mary. One day we'll know. There's lots we don't know. But we do know this. Everything has been provided for us. And we're happy. Because we live in a world of beauty. Brilliant hues and crystalline forms and phantasmal spiraling colors. Each day, the sky seems to change color. The clouds have different shapes. The flowers come in the spring. I like it here. I think we're good for now. Somebody must be watching over us. You know, I feel we're like children in our Father and our Divine Mother's arms. And they've got us, and they love us, and everything's great. The future, what it holds, will be a surprise, and we'll trust Him. Amen. Good night, dearest one. Good night, my love. And peace reigned over the world. See you guys tomorrow. Hope you have a wonderful evening. His grace and His peace be with you. Have a good one.